Hannah Eliza Moore could not stop her hand from shaking as she pressed her small sewing bag against her chest. The wind screamed across the open road, and the snow fell so thick it erased the world beyond a few steps. The stagecoach wheels had stopped turning. The driver did not look at her. She knew that look. She had seen it years ago in her father's eyes when he told her she was no longer welcome in his home. She had seen it in her husband's face when she chose her work over his control. Men looked away when they were about to do something they would never admit. "Please," she said softly. "The storm is getting worse." The driver shrugged, pulling his coat tighter. "Can't go further," he said. "Horses won't survive." Hannah felt the cold sink deeper into her bones. "You can't leave me here. Watch me." He climbed down, cut the reins loose, and rode away into the white silence. The sound of hooves vanished. So did her last chance. Hannah stood alone. Nothing but a thin coat, a pair of soaked boots, and a sewing bag holding every piece of her past. 10 years of stitches. 10 years of surviving alone. She began to walk. The wind hit her like fists. Snow burned her eyes. Her fingers went numb. She thought of the little shop she lost. The letter that gave her 30 days to disappear. The city that had no place left for her. Her foot caught on ice. She fell hard. The sewing bag slipped from her hands. No, she clawed through the snow until her fingers found leather. She hugged it tight, breathing, shaking, alive. Then she saw it, a dim light, a house barely visible through the storm. She forced herself up, one step, then another. By the time she reached the door, she could barely lift her arms. She knocked, once, twice. "Please," she whispered. "Please." The door opened. 3 children stood frozen in place. Thin, silent, eyes too old for their faces. Behind them stood a man, tall, broad, weathered by grief and work. His eyes were hard, not cruel, but guarded. "Who are you?" Hannah could barely speak. "The stagecoach left me." The man looked past her into the storm. His jaw tightened. "Coming before it kills you." Warmth hit her like a wave. Her knees nearly gave out. Daddy, the smallest child, whispered. "It's all right," the man said. "She stays until the storm passes." Hannah tried to protest, but no words came. She sank into a chair, shaking, freezing. The man returned with a blanket, dropped it over her shoulders. "Name is Samuel Ridge. These are my children, Thomas, Eli, and Lucy." They did not smile. They just stared. "When did you last eat?" She could not answer. A bowl was placed in her hands. Beans and bread. Simple. Hot. Eat. She did. Lucy crept closer. "Your dress is pretty." Hannah looked down at the worn fabric. "I made it. You make clothes." "Yes." Samuel stiffened. "Lucy, that's enough." But Hannah saw the torn sleeves, the patched hems, the uneven stitches. "I can help," she said quietly. Silence filled the room. The fire cracked. The storm howled. Samuel finally spoke, just until the store. "Amens." Hannah nodded, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. Morning came quietly, not with birds or sunshine, but with the heavy hush that follows a night of snowfall. Hannah woke on a narrow bed wrapped in a blanket that smelled with smoke and memory. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then she remembered the storm, the door, the children. She sat up slowly. Her body ached from cold and exhaustion. Her boots were still damp, her fingers stiff. Outside the wind had softened, but snow still fell steady and thick. She stepped into the main room. Samuel stood at the stove turning something in a pan. The children sat at the table silent, waiting. "Good morning," Hannah said softly. Lucy looked up first. She smiled just a little. Samuel nodded. "Coffee is hot." He poured her a cup without asking. She wrapped her hands around it, feeling life return to her fingers. "How long will the storm last?" she asked. "Days, maybe more." Her chest tightened. Days meant Helena was gone. Days meant everything she planned no longer existed. After breakfast, the children drifted away. Thomas pulled on his coat and went outside. Eli followed without a word. Lucy stayed behind, watching Hannah carefully. "Can you really?" So she asked. Hannah smiled. "I can." Lucy ran to her room, and returned holding a dress too big and badly patched. Mama made this before she died. The words landed heavy. Samuel turned away, pretending to check the stove. Hannah knelt beside Lucy. The stitches were rough, the fabric worn, but the care was there. I can fix it. Lucy looked to her father. Please. Samuel hesitated, then nodded. Hannah opened her sewing bag. The familiar tools steadied her hands. Needle, thread, thimble. As she worked, Lucy watched every movement. Eli sat nearby, drawing birds in the ash with a stick. Thomas lingered, pretending not to care. You do that like magic, Lucy whispered. It's just patience, Hannah said. She worked for hours. The house grew warmer, quieter, safer. By afternoon, Samuel spoke again. We lost her 3 winters ago. Hannah did not interrupt. Fever took her and the baby. Silence followed. I didn't know how to be both mother and father. I still don't. Hannah kept stitching. The children need more than survival, she said gently. Samuel looked at her sharply. I keep them fed, clothed, alive. I know, but they need warmth. They need hope. Lucy leaned against Hannah without asking. That evening Hannah cooked with Samuel, burned the bread, laughed softly. Something neither of them had done in a long time. The children ate more than usual. That night, Hannah lay awake listening to the wind, to the quiet breathing of a house that had forgotten how to feel full. She understood now. This place was not just cold from winter. It was cold from loss. And somehow he had walked straight into the center of it. The storm did not break. It settled in. Snow pressed against the windows like a wall. Days blurred together. Morning and night lost their meaning. Hannah fell into rhythm. Wake, cook, mend, teach. The sewing bag never left her side. Lucy sat beside her every day. Small hands clumsy but eager. Tongue caught between her teeth as she learned to guide the needle. Thomas asked questions without meaning to. About fabric. About how clothes were measured. About why thread mattered. Eli watched, always watching. He spoke little, but his eyes followed every movement, every stitch. One afternoon, Hannah placed a needle gently in his hand. You can try if you want. He shook his head. That's all right, she said, watching his learning too. Something shifted in his face. Relief, maybe. Samuel worked longer hours, fixing fences that did not need fixing, repairing tools already whole, avoiding the quiet. But he watched her too. He saw the way Lucy laughed, the way Thomas relaxed, the way Eli sat closer to the fire. At supper, Lucy spoke without looking up. Mama would have liked her. The spoon froze in Samuel's hand. The room went still. Hannah felt her chest tighten. She did not rush to answer. I hope, so she said softly. That night, Samuel stood by the door of the sewing room. Mary kept her things there. I know. You can use them. He walked away before she could respond. Inside the room, Hannah found unfinished work. Fabric folded with care. Thread sorted by color. A half-sewn quilt. She touched it gently. A life paused mid-stitch. Tears came quietly. The next day, Hannah began to quilt again. Not to replace. Not to erase. But to honor. Lucy helped. Thomas cut fabric straight for the first time. Eli traced birds onto cloth. His birds were beautiful. On the third night, he spoke, barely above a whisper. They used to come to the window. Birds. Hannah smiled. They still do. He nodded. Samuel heard the sound, stopped breathing for a moment. That night, the fire burned bright. Laughter filled spaces long empty. Hannah lay awake knowing the storm had brought more than snow. Dee brought healing, one stitch at a time. The days crept closer to Christmas. No one spoke of it at first. The house held the season like a memory too painful to touch. Hannah noticed the way Lucy stared at the calendar, the way Thomas worked harder than usual, the way Eli drew the same tree again and again. Samuel said nothing. Snow still ruled the land. The roads were buried. The world had shrunk to the size of the ranch. One evening, Lucy finally asked, Is Santa coming this year? Samuel froze. His shoulders stiffened. Hannah stepped in gently. What do you hope for? Lucy thought, a dress that fits. Thomas wanted a book. Eli wants nothing. Eli whispered, I want Mama. Silence broke the room. Samuel turned away. That night Hannah made a decision. She opened her sewing bag, then the sewing room trunk. Mary's fabric waited. Unused, patient, she chose blue for Lucy, strong brown for Thomas, deep green for Eli. She worked by firelight, hands aching, eyes burning. She hid the clothes when footsteps came. Lucy nearly caught her twice. Samuel noticed the tiredness. You don't have to do this. I want to. On Christmas Eve, the house smelled of bread, burnt but warm. A small tree stood in the corner, bare, but alive. That night Hannah lay awake, afraid. Hope is dangerous, she knew. Morning came with a scream of joy. Lucy ran into the room. Presents. Real presents. The children tore paper. Blue spilled into Lucy's hands. She cried. Thomas held his shirt like it might vanish. Eli touched the bird stitched into his vest. Mama liked birds, he said. Samuel dropped to his knees. Tears fell freely. For the first time in years, Christmas lived again. Hannah stood back, heartful, knowing she had crossed a line. She was no longer a guest. The storm began to loosen its grip. Snow fell lighter. The silence outside changed. Samuel noticed first. Roads will clear soon. The words settled heavy. Hannah felt them like a weight on her chest. Leaving had always been her strength. This time it felt like loss. Thomas asked carefully, Are you going? Hannah did not answer right away. That night, Samuel spoke quietly. They are attached. I know. I can't let them lose another person. Hannah nodded. Neither can I. She walked alone to the sewing room, touched the quilt. Mary's work. Her work. She understood then. Some doors close so others can open. The next morning she gathered the children. I have a choice to make. Lucy grabbed her hand. Stay. Thomas said nothing but his eyes pleaded. Eli stepped forward. Mama sent you. Hannah felt the truth settle deep. She looked at Samuel. I am not leaving. The house exhaled. Samuel closed his eyes. Just stay through winter. I will stay longer than that. The fire burned brighter. The house felt whole. For the first TI, me, Hannah belonged. Winter slowly released the land. Snow melted into dark earth. Light returned to the windows. Spring arrived quietly. Hannah stood on the porch watching the children play. Lucy laughed freely. Thomas stood taller. Eli sketched birds that now flew instead of falling. Samuel joined her. You stayed. I did. The word felt solid. True. Life settled into something real. Hard work. Shared meals. Evenings by the fire. Hannah taught. Samuel learned. The children healed. One evening, Samuel spoke what had lived in his eyes for months. This house needs you. We need you. Hannah took his hand. I chose this place. The children heard. They always did. Lucy ran forward. Family stays forever. Yes, Hannah said. Family stays. That summer, a small ceremony filled the house. No finery. No crowds. Just promises. Hannah wore a dress she made herself. Samuel stood proud. The children smiled brighter than the sun. The storm that brought her there was gone, but its gift remained. A home, a family, a future. Some storms destroy. Others carry you where you belong. And Hannah Eliza Moore, who once stood alone in the Blee Eyes. Zard, never stood alone again.